Now it's exactly the right time, and it's time for us to kick off the celebration of 2 decades of Selenium. My name is Maaret Pyhäjärvi, and it's my privilege to open up the session, even though there's a esteemed colleague, Palavi Sharma, who is here with me as well. Well, I definitely would like to welcome you all into celebrating the moment of it's been now 20 years since the Selenium project started. About a year ago, we were doing some research into what is the exact time and how do we figure out the timing. And we chose this particular day based on the fact that this is when a public announcement was made. My time a few hours earlier than right now, so in my morning time, and today we wanted to celebrate with a couple of talks around the modern ways of Selenium, and in the end of this session, we'll also have a chance of asking questions or having a bit of an online conversation in this streaming platform, streaming media that we have. So for questions, just kind of, make sure that you're aware of it, that for questions, you can use the YouTube side box. There's a way of writing out things, and we'll be looking out for that while we're delivering some of the talks and ideas. So any kind of engagement there is definitely welcome, and so joining us overall in this celebration. I don't have much of other things that I would need to say in the beginning, so I think we can hand it over already to our first speaker, and I'll see you again at the end in the questions and answers session. So Diego Molina is our first presenter today. Diego represents the technical leadership group. He's also with me in the project leadership committee. And definitely welcome, and over to you, Diego.
Thank you, Maaret. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending some time with us to celebrate this 20th anniversary that the project has been developing, bringing a tool for everyone, for all of us. So also thanks to Palavi, to everyone who has been involved in preparing this event for all of you. And without delaying more this, let me present and share my screen. I want to share a few things with you. Let me. There you go. No, this is not the one. Just a moment. I'm sorry about this. It's just, it takes a while sometimes. There we go. I'm just gonna need a few more moments. This is not working as I expected, so let's do it again. There you go. Okay, this is not what I expect. Anyway, let's go. There we go. So something interesting I want to share with you today is a talk I've been developing over this year, where basically I want to share with you what other alternatives we have out there for Selenium. And one of the important messages I want to share along this presentation is the message of collaboration and teamwork. And I will highlight that bit in different parts of the presentation. So let me get started. I am Diego. I am one of the leads at the Selenium project in different phases, technical and also project-wise. I'm also one of the leads at the open source program office at SOSLab. So if you want to reach out to me, those are my social network users, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you at any time. One of the things I want to start talking about is that Selenium is widely used in the testing world, right? And also the automation world. And we as testers, as automation testers, most of them, one of the key parts that we do in our role in testing is to collaborate, to work with each other. I like to see that a person who tests is kind of the hub in several teams where they enable collaboration, they enable communication, and they enable progress in some ways. So I just want to highlight that most of the people who use Selenium to some extent, they are really great collaborators. They are focusing on teamwork to make and enable whatever they do to move forward. So the things I want to share today are basically summarized in these bullet points. I want you to think if Selenium is a good option for browser automation today. I want to give you some context, and also I want to give you the importance of choosing a good test framework. And then I'm going to leave some thoughts for you all. The first question I want to give you all is the following one. If you had a greenfield project today, would you choose Selenium or not? Feel free to comment that in the comments, or like in the LinkedIn chat. We're also checking that as well. But like, put that in your head. Would you use Selenium if you had a greenfield project that you could start right now? So there are different perspectives for that, right? Like, Selenium is a great tool because it has cross-browser and cross-platform support. So it works in every single browser that your real user uses. It's based on a standard. You can run it locally or remotely. And most importantly, it's a project. It's a tool that has been created by the community, and it's supported by the community. And one of the key things is that the way the project is run, it's governed, it assures that you will be able to use this tool for a long time without any commercial disturbances. But maybe if it was me, probably I wouldn't use Selenium today as a tool to automate browsers directly, right? Because there are many things I need to do before actually writing a test. There is no automatic waiting, there is no reporting, there are no assertions, there is no boilerplate code. And I have seen several cases of people who focus a lot on the right column that we're seeing. And then they miss the point of like delivering value, delivering good tests to make sure the application works well and all that. So what I want to show you today is a few things, a few tools you can use that are built on top of Selenium that are really great options that will help your automation life much easier. But before showing all that, I want to give you a bunch of context. The first one is that Selenium is not a testing framework, right? Selenium is a tool that is really, really good at automating browsers. So it's a low-level automation tool. And what I like to mention in this case is like, if you were to build a website, what would you do today? Would you use pure JavaScript and maybe something like jQuery? Or would you use a framework that has a lot of things made for you, like Angular or Vue or React, right? You would use a tool that is ready for you to be delivering value to your team, to your customers, to your users. So one of the things that is a bit annoying in the industry is that people tend to compare Selenium versus Playwright versus Cypress and so on, because some of those tools are fully fledged testing frameworks, while Selenium is more an automation tool for browsers. So it lacks all the nice things that these other tools have. So what I want to do today is give you more context on on why this matters, like understanding the tool properly. So one of the good things about collaboration is that people are starting to understand the importance of having a standard, a way to work across different browsers and different industries and different companies. The folks in the DevTools team in Chrome, they have realized this potential of collaboration, and they have started to invest a lot of time. And one of those investments has been to document how test automation has evolved a long time. There is an excellent blog post written by them, and I wanted to build this knowledge base for a long time. And what I did was just to reuse what they did, and I want to share this with you. So if you don't want to go there and read this blog post, this is what I want to share with you with some extra things that I have added. Just a moment. So Selenium was created many years ago, 20 years ago, today's anniversary, by Jason Huggins. And then the first version of the tool was a tool that was injecting JavaScript into the browser to automate websites. People started to see some really good things about it, but some other folks started to see some downsides. Like you couldn't do different things, like manage a window, like you couldn't do many things that were outside of the JavaScript engine in that case. One of those people who saw the different downsides was Simon Stewart, who created Selenium, who created WebDriver at that point. And basically the idea was to automate the browser from outside of it, instead of like the initial focus of injecting JavaScript and automating everything inside the browser. The idea was to actually use something from outside the browser to automate the website in a much cleaner way. And with that, open the possibility of automating the browser with more programming languages, not only JavaScript. So the first bit about collaboration comes here. Selenium and WebDriver were different projects. They were competing projects. And at some point, Jason and Simon came together and they said, well, I don't exactly know what they said, but the gist of it was, let's collaborate, let's make something good for the community. Otherwise, these two projects will compete forever, and probably one of them will die, and the other one won't have the good things about the other one. So there was an opportunity to collaborate, to work together, and do things that were going to be positive and useful for a wide community of testers and automators. Years later, this became what is called today WebDriver Classic, and that's what created this huge ecosystem that we have today. So we have this standard called WebDriver that is basically some text in a GitHub repository that explains how to automate a browser. And on top of that, we have several famous implementations. One of them is Selenium. Selenium is an implementation of the WebDriver standard. And on top of Selenium, we have many other projects, which I like a lot, and I would like to highlight today. So one of them is Appium, a famous extension of Selenium. We have things like Water in Ruby that is a full testing framework. We have Selenide in Java. We have Atara in C#. We have Nightwatch in JavaScript, and many more. We also have WebDriver.io, which is a very famous implementation of the WebDriver standard. I think is one of the hidden gems in the WebDriver ecosystem. And it's a complete testing framework. You can do mobile, you can do browser, you have assertion libraries, reporting libraries, and so on. And you also have things like Serenity.js on top of that, which is this kind of new approach that we see in automation, where you can write your test in an agnostic library. In this case, you will use JavaScript, but what happens in that library, in that framework, is that under the hood, you can have a configuration file where you can say, this test executed with, I don't know, WebDriver.io, or with Puppeteer, or with Playwright, or with Selenium. So this is a new approach we're starting to see in automation as well. Last thing I want to mention is, I don't know if you're aware that at least 70% of the web is still written in PHP. So back in the days, when Facebook was working more in this aspect of WebDriver, they created the PHP WebDriver project, and eventually they gave it to the community so the community could continue to maintain this project. On top of it, what we have today is a couple of libraries that you can use for more like frameworks that you can use for automation and automate websites. So you have Laravel and Panther. So I just wanted to highlight how this initial collaboration between Jason and Simon created an opportunity for many others to continue collaborating, continue doing some teamwork, and then build more tools for the community with the purpose of browser and also mobile automation. And afterwards, we decided that JavaScript was going to be the language we were going to use to write the web. And along that, many tools were created for browser automation as well. So we have Testcafe, Cypress, Playwright, Puppeteer, and so on. All these tools were born along all these years. And one of the things that are pretty interesting, and I didn't really think about this until I read this blog post from the DevTools folks, is that we have two automation approaches. One is the high level, which we have these two tools here, and the other one is the classic one. So with the WebDriver Classic one and with CDP. So let's talk about them. And this is like the last bit of context I want to share with you before jumping to the different tools that I want to show you. So we have the high level, and the best example is Cypress. Cypress works in a way that you can inject your test, your TypeScript or your JavaScript test into the browser to automate the application or the website you're testing. And Cypress has something in the middle that is a Node.js process that is in charge of controlling everything that happens when the command leaves the browser. So for example, if you want to mock network requests, if you want to mock an API or something like that, then you have that Node.js process in the middle controlling everything that happens in the browser. It's interesting, the approach, because this is the way Selenium used it to work 20 years ago. So it's an approach that, according to the tool, it's beneficial because when you inject the test, so the JavaScript code inside the browser, you're also having access to everything that is happening inside the browser. So in some way, when the browser has its event loop going through the instructions, then in the end, what is happening there is that you have the web application and the test going together in that event loop. So some people think that this might be a way to have a test that is less flaky. But in some other way, when you think about it, you will have a test that is also messing, or well, messing is not the correct word, but like executing along the web application. And this is my personal opinion. Like, I don't like this type of approach because your real end user won't be injecting JavaScript when they use your browser, so, and your application. So that means that this type of approach is not the best, in my opinion, but it's a good approach if you're testing something like component testing or things like that. And what is happening here in the next example is that when you talk about Testcafe has a very similar approach where they had like this tool in the middle that was controlling every single request coming in and out of the browser. So injecting JavaScript and this proxy in the middle that they use. I won't go into much details because what it's interesting is the next slide. So I'm saying I'm not going to go into more details because I'm going to round up like this comparison between high and low level in just a moment. The low level approach, when we talk about this, basically what this is giving you as a user is more granular control over the browser and the actions that happen in the browser. So there is one approach that is the classic one, which is what we have known for many years. HTTP based, where you send commands to the browser and you wait for a response. That's where the W3C standard has helped a lot with Chrome driver, Gecko driver, and so on. But then there is this other approach, also low level, by using CDP. And CDP is based on WebSockets. So what is the difference here in simple words? So if you're using something like HTTP, it's more like writing a letter. Like you write something or you write an email, and you cannot continue the conversation until you hear a response. Until that moment is when you can continue the conversation and send more messages. When you talk about WebSockets, it's slightly different because this is more like a phone call. Like you're talking and you keep talking, and you don't need to wait for a message to come back to continue sending messages. So this is like a type of communication that allows you to do more things before you have to wait for something to happen on the other side. It also brings more options to do more tasks in the way that you can do something that is important for the system under test while something happens in the browser and so on. So it brings more opportunities, but you also need to be more aware of what you're doing actually in the browser and the test. The root of this is that, the web has evolved a lot in the last 10 years. We're not having only these simple web applications that were static. We have web applications that are doing much more. Like it's not enough to click and assert that something's there. Nowadays, we need to take into account what is happening behind the website. So are the user analytics being sent? Are we having any error logs in the console? And that's why many people are starting to use something like CDP to get more control in the browser. So we want to capture the console messages. We want to simulate a device mode. We want to do more things in a way that let us understand better how our application is working. And that low-level control is actually not possible via the classic approach. And that's why Selenium 4 introduces the way of using CDP together with Selenium. But in the long term, this is tricky because CDP only works in Chromium-based browsers, so Chrome and Edge. And that's why different companies have come together, like Google, Microsoft, Mozilla, and Apple. They're working together, plus other ones like BrowserStack and Sauce Labs and others. They're working together to create a standard that allows the user, allows you and me and everyone who wants to automate the browser to have that low-level control, access to the different levels of the browser that are interesting for us as testers and automators across all browsers, so Safari and Firefox and Chrome and Edge and all of them. And again, the DevTools folks are helping us a lot by putting out documentation and blog posts that are helping us understand how this works better. So ideally, this will be a protocol that helps us automate browsers in a low level, so like in a more grained way, more controlled. And the perfect example of this is Puppeteer. For example, Puppeteer, which was created, I think, in 2018, it was a tool that had excellent features, but it only worked on Chromium browsers. Today, Puppeteer is one of the first adopters of WebDriver BiDi, and with that, they are now able to automate not only Chromium-based browsers, but also Firefox. And when Apple enables Safari to do the same thing, then Puppeteer will be able to automate all browsers that are available. So the important thing here is that we're not telling you always use Selenium, but always use a tool that is based on a standard, because that will guarantee you to have a set of automated scripts that will actually last for a long time. So if we come back to the ecosystem topic, we can now see that there is a WebDriver BiDi standard. And thanks to that, we have one more member in the ecosystem family, that is WebDriver. So let's summarize this high and low level bit. And I love this summary because this part is really important. So I've been talking about how collaboration and teamwork is enabling a whole ecosystem to move forward. And the example is here. Test Cafe, they were implementing a bunch of code to automate their different test suites. To give more context, Test Cafe is owned by a company called DevExpress, if I'm not wrong. And what they do is to test their web components. So their business is to sell web components to other companies to build websites. And they use Test Cafe to test those web components. So they realized that this framework was really, really a lot of work to maintain. And they saw that a lot of things they were doing could be done easily with CDP, with the Chrome DevTools protocol. So they evolved and they started to use CDP for that. And basically, they removed a lot of the maintenance of their code. And in some way, what they realized is that if they start to use a tool that is out there, available for everyone, instead of creating their own solution, they saw a way to move the tool forward, make it easier to maintain, and make it more sustainable in the long term for everyone. I'm just saying, so they're using CDP now, but my prediction is that eventually they will notice that BiDi will be a good option for them, and then they will remove all the extra code they were having to manage all these corner cases. What is super interesting is that now they had two versions of their testing tool, with their Test Cafe proxy and with their native automation. They call it native automation for the one for CDP. So the interesting thing here is that they were having their test suite for their components, and they run it with their old solution, the Test Cafe proxy, and now with the new one that is integrating CDP. And they saw an improvement. So they saw a reduction of the execution time between 40 to 70%. And this is just because a lot of the logic that was happening inside the testing framework is now being done by the browser, where it should actually be done. And with that, they realized that, oh, like we could use actually a tool that is out there, is being done by, I don't know, like a community that we can collaborate, or we can like somehow talk to them. And again, one of the predictions would be that they will see so much benefit from this collaboration that eventually they will move to BiDi again. So the question open here is, it would be cool to see how Cypress could see a potential to use a tool that is out there to enable their framework to be more maintainable, more sustainable, and maybe enable more collaboration in the future as well. That was the context I wanted to share. And now I'm just going to wrap all this with a few frameworks I want to share to recommend to you all. So we usually look for a framework because we want to be, in short, we want to be faster and we want to reduce all the maintenance costs. So the summary of this is like, if you want to develop your own tool, eventually you will need to adapt to the changes that happen inside every browser a long time. But if you have a framework that most of the time does this for you, then you will be able to be faster in the future. These are things that sometimes we look for in a framework to do automation, right? And I'm not going to go through them, but ideally, these are things you should look into before choosing a tool. So if all these or most cases are interesting for you, then you should look for a framework as well. And aside of these things, the first bullet points when you're considering a testing framework, please have a look at what as the governance. The governance means that how the project is being run. So in this case, let's talk about Selenium. Selenium has a clear governance that says how you can be part of it, how someone can come and propose a new feature, and so on. And those things are pretty important, because if you want to invest your test automation in a given tool, you should understand what the roadmap for this tool is, what happens if somehow at some point the company that is behind that tool decides to stop supporting the tool, if there is a way to rescue that tool and bring it to the community. Like, for example, PHP WebDriver was created inside Facebook, and there was at some point a way to bring that tool outside of the Facebook ecosystem and leave it for the community to be maintained. So those type of things are really important when you want to invest in a tool, and avoid situations where you invest code. So when you invest time to write code, and therefore maybe this tool won't be maintained in the future. So this is something important that you should have a look as well. So these are the alternatives I want to share today. Most of the folks who are maintaining these tools are in constant touch with the Selenium project. They are in our Slack channel. So it's a community of collaboration out there. All of these solutions, they focus on giving you a tool that enables you write a test or an automated script out of the box. So you don't need to write boilerplate code. You don't need to write assertions on your own. You don't need to do reports on your own. There are many things out there. And one of the coolest parts is that there is automatic synchronization. So this means that all the features you have been always wanted from Selenium, they are out there for you. The first one that I like to use a lot is Selenide. It's a Java testing framework that controls both browsers and mobile. So it's one of my preferred tools, and you should have a look. Like Andre, who is the main maintainer, is also in our Slack channel if you want to get in touch with him. As an example, when you're writing Selenium code to do a user login in Selenium, it's usually quite verbose because obviously you need to open the driver, you need to close it, perhaps you need to do a few assertions. Maybe if you don't have the assertion library, you need to build one of your own or then add another one. So it tends to be very verbose because in some cases that's the nature of Java. In this case, what Selenide is doing for you is offering a set of methods in their API to make the test very understandable. So one of the nice things about Selenide is that if you don't know how to code, if you don't know how to program, but you understand English, there is a way that you can understand what this test is doing just by reading at the code. So you can see that this URL is being opened, that there is a value being set in some given field, and then you're pressing enter. And at some point, you're actually asserting that in some place in the website, in the page, there is a text that is present. So it's code that is easier to read and enables you to focus more on the automation bit rather than all the boilerplate code. When you write a find element instruction in Selenium, it looks like this. Like this is quite long, but when you do that in Selenide, it's just like this. And when you're asserting, this is also a way of doing it. Like you could do this in Selenium and it works perfectly, but sometimes it's very verbose and it doesn't let you focus on what your test is doing. So what Selenide offers you is something like this. Like these elements should be visible. And that's pretty useful because basically it lets you have a test that is easier to understand, easier to read, and hopefully more maintainable. Error messages are also out there for you. It prints a very understandable error message telling you that this element, something was wrong, sorry, and then it gives you the detail of the element. It also takes a screenshot for you and the page source of the website you were testing. And with our examples, you can also have parallelization out of the box, which is extremely useful because at some point you want to write a few tests and you want to be performant with them. So you want to run them in parallel, and also Selenide offers that for you. It has an Appium integration. It works quite nice. I know several people in the community and also as in the commercial side that they use this tool in a nice way. So please have a look, and this is one of my top recommendations for all of you. The next ones will be a bit faster because I don't have code examples, but I also recommend them entirely. Selenium Base is a great tool. It has so many features that it's I wouldn't have enough time to talk about them. Actually, there is a talk by the maintainer Michael Mintz in the Selenium conference in Chicago 2023. So go there and have a look. This tool has recorder mode, plugins for reports, assertion libraries, and many, many more. So have a look at it if you are into the Python programming language. Ruby has Watir as a testing framework. One of them, there is another one called Capybara. But Watir exists even before Selenium. And this framework has so much knowledge inside it that basically many other frameworks copied things from Watir. So I'm not going to go much longer than that, but basically if you want to automate websites with Ruby, Watir should be your choice. I think Capybara is also a good choice, but this is just a preferred one by me because I work closely with one of the maintainers. C#, you have Atara as well. It's a framework that has, in the same way as the other ones, it has like reporting, assertion libraries, and many other templates that are useful for you if you want to start automating. So have a look at it as well. And let's leave JavaScript at the end. I think I missed to mention again Nightwatch in this case, but I will do that for the next time I do this presentation. I just want to highlight WebDriver. WebDriver is one of the most interesting tools out there for JavaScript and TypeScript automation. It supports browsers and mobile devices as well. And one of the interesting bits is that WebDriver is not part of the Selenium project, but we work closely very often. We collaborate, we do teamwork, we're interested into offering really good tools for automation for the whole community. So it's a tool you should have a look at if you're interested in JavaScript and doing browser and mobile automation. And yeah, I mean, I should be blind to not have seen that Playwright is a big thing these days. And I also want to mention it because this is more like a personal view. There is still something that we are discussing inside the project, how to handle this collaboration. But in the end, there are things that are good in Playwright, like the way of automating, the way they do several things is very interesting. And also one of the approaches the Selenium project has is to not try to deny or avoid that things are happening, more like learn from the new tools and incorporate things that might be interesting for all of us. So it doesn't matter that maybe Playwright is having an interesting approach that is unique to them. What we do in the project is to understand what they're doing and maybe offer a similar feature for Selenium users as well. So I'm also mentioning Playwright because eventually they do a lot of things to offer browser automation. So they put the Firefox and the Safari icons on their website, but to be true, they don't offer the vanilla or the standard version of those browsers. In the case of Firefox, what they do is to, better said, Playwright uses CDP to automate browsers. But Firefox and Safari, they don't have CDP. So what they do is that they take Firefox, they put CDP on top, they wrap it, and they release that binary. So everyone who uses Playwright to automate Firefox, they're using not the real binary that end users use, but they use this modified binary for Firefox. And in Safari, you cannot modify Safari because it's closed sourced. So what they do, they take WebKit, they put CDP on top, and then they pack this and release a new binary for everyone to use. So if you're using Playwright to automate WebKit, this is not actually the end browser that your real users use with Safari. But I'm mentioning that because at some point they're realizing this is a lot of work. I cannot patch Safari or WebKit or Firefox every single time I do a Playwright release. It's a lot of work. So they're also understanding the power of collaboration and teamwork. They're doing it in their own way. They're slowly coming together and working with different groups. and finding ways to collaborate in the same way that the folks at Puppeteer are doing it, in the same way that Test Cafe at some point saw the opportunity of collaborating with other tools. So Playwright is doing something very similar. They're finding ways to also see how they can support the actual browser your end users have in their laptop, so Firefox and Safari. So this is a really good step, and our prediction is that eventually we're going to have to move a bit more to the left for all these tools, and we'll eventually going to see Playwright as well in the WebDriver ecosystem. So some takeaways about all this I have been sharing with you is so we should have a look at the framework before in a holistic way, before actually choosing a tool, so understanding how it works under the hood, understanding how you can actually move forward with a tool like that, how easily it can adapt to changes in the different browsers. And one of the things I would like to see people focus more is on writing automation scripts rather than building a framework. Or you can also find tools that do 90% for you, and you can add the rest, the remaining 10%, instead of writing everything on your own and making automation a bit more complicated. So focus on something that helps you move forward, add value to your team, to your company, to your customer, to your website, and so on, instead of like building everything on your own. And one of the phrases Simon has taught me, and many others in the Selenium project. So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This is the main message of this talk. And before wrapping everything up, just a quick reminder that the Selenium conference is happening next year, end of March in Valencia. We're going to do it together with the Appium team. So we're going to have Selenium Conf and Appium Conf 2025 in Valencia, in Spain, March 26 to 28, 2025. Call for proposals are open. This is actually the venue where the conference will happen, this building you see there. So the call for speakers is open. Go to seleniumconf.com, submit a talk, and we're looking forward to see you in Valencia, in Spain next year. That was all for me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for celebrating with us the 20th anniversary of Selenium. And we're here for your questions and comments. Thank you very much. I'm going to wait a moment and check the comments in YouTube and see if someone has a question. Because if there are no questions, there is another great talk by Puja, Jagani, one of our other team members. I work with Puja very often. And if there are no questions, I'm just very happy to jump into the next talk. There will be a Q&A panel after Puja's talk. So I think for the sake of time and efficiency, I'm just going to jump to the next talk. And I'm going to let everyone else gather their questions and thoughts for the final part of this celebration today with the rest of the folks from the Selenium project. I'm going to do that then. I'm going to move this here. And
thanks, Diego. That was one fabulous talk. I'll now be starting Puja's talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, my name is Puja Jagani. Today here I am here to talk about BiDi part Selenium and how it's shaping tomorrow's automation. And this is on Selenium's 20th birthday. So happy birthday to Selenium and more part to the entire community that made this happen and for Selenium to come along so far, as well as a huge shout out to the amazing founders, maintainers, whoever's helped support the project in any form. Huge thanks to them. So hello, a little bit about me. My name is Puja Jagani. I work at Brastak. I'm a lead engineer there, and I'm also a developer advocate at Bastak. I'm also one of the code committers at Selenium. I've been in the project for roughly 4 years. It's been a great journey there, and I think since the last few years, my primary focus has been BiDi. I think, and the team has been incredible in helping me land support for BiDi in Java, JavaScript, and I think we're getting more. There's a lot of momentum around it for you in Ruby and Python and .NET as well. A lot of efforts are being put in. I think David Burns and I discussed BiDi with ST Times relatively recently. They did a detailed blog on it. Um, and I think I'm here to continue the same conversation to discuss why it's the next big thing and how it's shaping the automation landscape. Let's just have a quick glance over the agenda. Yes, I think I'm going to be covering a lot of ground today. We'll get started with what's at the core of Selenium WebDriver Classic, and then just quickly jump on into what the exciting world of BiDi and how it compares to Chrome DevTools protocol. And after that, once I kind of convince you, or once I communicate that it is the next big thing for automation or how it's molding the automation landscape, I'll walk through some real world examples or use cases that BiDi helps solve along with Selenium, and we'll conclude with what Selenium's BiDi journey looks like and how you can help at each and every stage, and how I would really appreciate the community support at that point, and how you can help contribute. So let's start with what is Selenium. I guess most of the folks here pretty much know that, but okay, still let's start with a little food for thought kind of a thing here. Selenium automates browsers. That's it. It's to automate your web applications, or even um, automate your boring, mundane tasks. And this is the tagline that it has, right? But let's think about it a little bit in terms of automation is hard. And I don't think it's hard because of the tools or the framework, but it's really hard because of everything else that you cannot control, right? Uh, think about it like, dynamic content that changes in a blink of an eye, or network conditions that are, it feels like they're constantly trying to work against you, or unpredictable browser behavior, that just comes on in. It feels like at this point, automation feels like navigating a maze where the walls are constantly shifting, That's what makes this field so complex. I wouldn't say it's the tool, it's just the environment and a lot of things that we possibly cannot control. And there are things that have been working well so far. I mean, Selenium, it's been around for 20 years. Again, very happy birthday to Selenium. And it's been working very well. But um, BiDi is the next big thing. And it is because it helps navigate these challenging things in automation in general, right? Again, pertaining to the environment and just the nature of the browser in general. But before we deep dive into BiDi, let's have a look as to what is at the core of Selenium, right? So the core of Selenium is the Selenium, as we call it, Selenium WebDriver Classic. It's called the WebDriver Classic protocol now. And it's actually a trusty messenger that sends commands and relays the responses back, and it's been doing an amazing job so well. So let's have a look a little bit into it. So this is the architecture diagram that I have in place. Before I sort of walk through this, let me just give you an analogy, and a simple analogy will be a TV set, right? So imagine trying to talk to your TV set to communicate some instructions, and I think that'll be pretty impractical, right? Imagine hurling commands at a TV. I don't think that's going to float well. But you need something like a remote control, right? Something that understands the language of the TV and you can communicate what you want to do, like switch it on, volume up. You need a remote control. So think of WebDriver as a remote control for the browser, right? Just like a TV remote is specific to a brand of TV, right? A WebDriver is specific to the browser implementation. For example, for Chrome, you'll have Chrome driver, Firefox, you'll have Gecko driver, Edge, you'll have Edge driver, and so on and so forth. And just with the TV, you know that when you send commands to the TV, there's a certain language it understands, right? And it's universal. Volume up means volume up, everyone knows it. Power on means power on, everyone knows it. And similarly, the common language to talk to the browser is kind of defined in the W3C WebDriver Classic protocol. It's a web standard that's designed by the amazing David Burns and Simon Stewarts, who are really huge in this space, and they've done some incredible work. And they drafted this WebDriver Classic protocol, which is nothing but like a blueprint of APIs, or REST APIs, through which you can go communicate with the browsers. For example, it tells you, it defines a REST API in terms of how you can use it as a client to go click a button on the browser, and how the browser should do it internally for this to happen, right? So it's just a standard, it's a golden web standard to allow this browser automation in place. So let's quickly have a look at this diagram. You see um, any of the clients on the left that use the WebDriver protocol. It could be Selenium, Appium, Nightwatch, or WebDriver IO. They send the command, all of them use HTTP, so it sends the command, and then once the server gets it, it sends a response back. It sends a command using one of the commands listed in the protocol, WebDriver protocol, goes to the WebDriver, which sort of relays it along to the WebDriver, the WebDriver, which relays it along to the browser. For example, if it's Chrome, it will send to the Chrome browser, and they know what to do, and it responds back and conducts the appropriate action, right? So this again, my analogy of TV and a remote set, where you ask to increase the volume and it knows what to do it. Here, the client will ask to click on a button, and the browser will know what to do it. Let's talk a little bit about the web evolution, right? So what we have has been working beautifully, right? It's been around for again 20 years. Selenium has at least, I think, around 3 to 4 million active users in the last 30 days based on our last release notes. But let's also reflect back on how the web has evolved. So back in the day, when the web evolved, with the internet was new, the websites were very static in nature. They were meant for content consumption. They were very simple. It was very predictable as to what will happen on the web page. And maybe that's why relatively easier to test-ish. Again, everyone has different problems, so that's a very subjective thing, but at least it was predictable in nature, right? Now the web applications, the websites that we have highly dynamic content, complex user interactions, real-time user updates just happening like that, right? So we can't always predict as to what's happening. And to test this, you need something that is more, that gives you more insights into what's happening in the browser, right? It gives you more fine-grained control or commands to deal with the modern-day testing scenario, just to keep up with the testing needs of the modern web applications. You need something which gives you a little more that's focused on the browser, like how it operates, and also some commands that can help you test these complex scenarios that come with this new dynamic nature of the web. And I think something that kind of fits the bill for this is DevTools, right? And I think this was the natural calling for a bit. But let's see what is DevTools. So DevTools, here I've taken an example of Chrome DevTools protocol. You have DevTools almost paired with any browser. It's essentially meant DevTools, like the name says. These are developer tools that help you while you're developing the web application. So say, suppose I'm developing a web application, I do right click, inspect, and I can go see this entire window, which has a lot of information on it in terms of you can go through the elements, the DOM structure, check out the performance, the network requests that are going through, and it's really feature rich, right? So it's giving you a lot of insights. That's what's happening behind the scenes inside the browser, right? So it's giving you a lot of fine-grained control. And the plus point about this is Chrome DevTools protocol. It's the window that's available in Chrome. While it helps you while development, what Chrome did is they made this exact same features available via code. Again, using the Chrome DevTools protocol. And since you can access via code, a lot of test-related frameworks and libraries like Playwright, Puppeteer relied on it to give you the automation capabilities. But it's only Chromium specific, right? I mean, Firefox did have partial support, and they're going to deprecate it. They've already deprecated it, and it's up for removal. But it's only Chrome focused, and this is super feature rich. And what makes this possible is a lot of bidirectional communication that happens from the browser, right? So you're sending network request, you're getting that back. There's a lot of things that you need from the browser to tell you that this is happening, right? So the browser needs to know, if you say want to monitor network requests, there has to be a way for the browser to tell you, hey, we've received a network request and this is what it looks like. And once you get it back, the UI can display it for you, or if you're using it via code, you get that information. So there's a lot of bidirectional communication that happens. and a lot of fine-grained control, like a lot of details, a very feature-rich protocol that we just saw there. And again, at the backbone of this, it happens because underlying this, it uses WebSocket connections. What are WebSockets? I think it's just a fully duplex channel of communication. So once you establish a connection with the server, you can communicate both ways. Client can send messages to the server and vice versa. So this kind of forms the backbone of something like this to work so well and get all that information from the browser, because browser can just push that information out, which is really detailed and very useful in a lot of scenarios. And now let's move on to BiDi, the thing that I'm here to talk about. I think this diagram looks familiar to most of the folks. We just saw it in one of the earlier slides. It pretty much mirrors what I had there, but if you see here, is the same structure. But now if you take a very close look, the channel of communication has changed. With the WebDriver Classic, we're using HTTP protocol. It's using WebSockets. So when you use WebSockets with BiDi, it allows you to do the bidirectional communication. That means now there is a way or a channel of communication that will allow web browsers to send some information. Exactly, right? So imagine instead of checking or polling if something of interest has happened, browser is going to tell you. And imagine how performant that would be when you're running something in your own grid or in a cloud provider like BrowStack, and that would be amazing, right? So that's what this gives you. It's again the same thing where the Selenium commands are sent over like WebSockets to the WebDriver, and from the WebDriver, it would go to the browser, but all of this would happen over WebSockets. And think of WebDriver BiDi as nothing but an extension of the Classic. So it has all the commands. It can do everything what the WebDriver Classic does. So what you can do today with Selenium, it can do everything and a lot more things. And I think there's so many things you can do with it. It's really up to the creativity of the framework makers to find all the use cases and to tackle it. But it can do a lot more to it. But now you tell me, Pooja, so you told me it's gone from HTTP to using WebSockets, but how is it solving my problems that you mentioned about? And I think that's where the protocol part of it comes in, right? So when we discuss, there's a WebDriver Classic protocol, which is nothing but a web standard. This is also a web standard, which is defining a lot of commands and events, and it's grouping everything beautifully just so that everyone can go understand it and implement it. So commands are nothing but instructions, right? So you send instructions to the browser, go do this, it'll do it for you. Like navigate to a page, it will do it for you. Perform a certain action, it will do that for you. Events are notifications from browser when something of interest has happened. So say you subscribe to a notification that tell me when the download will begin, or tell me when the network request has started, or tell me when authentication is asked for. Just let me know of these interesting things that happen, and these are nothing but events. So when you subscribe to events, you just subscribe to events in the browser, and when something of interest happens, it will send you a notification, or you will get the response back from the browser, and then you can move on to do things. And both the events and commands, they are organized into modules, which make sense based on a specific browser interaction, right? So they're just logically grouped together, making it just an easier blueprint for implementation for the framework makers or for browsers themselves. So that's what the power of BiDi does. And we'll see more of that in the real world examples later on. But what it's trying to focus on primarily is designing this whole protocol with the goal of it being with the goal of it aligning very well for automation purposes, right? So it's not practical to expose everything that a browser does. That's not going to work. That's going to have memory leaks. It's just not practical. But with actually exposing things that make a lot of sense for common automation use cases or the newer automation use cases. And that's what has gone in the core of the BiDi's design, and it's still an ongoing process. Now, I think since we discussed Chrome, DevTools protocol, and BiDi, someone would just might assume that, um, Chrome DevTools protocol was for Chrome, BiDi is something that could be, it's actually cross-browser. It has a very strong cross-browser support, just like WebDriver Classic, adopted by all major browsers. Someone would think that BiDi is just a copy of Chrome DevTools protocol, but it's not what that is, because that's not something that would logically work out. And for the following reasons. One is browser support. Again, Chrome is designed for Chromium-based browsers. BiDi needs to take in consideration other browsers and how they do things internally and what makes sense. And so BiDi enables a proper browser agnostic support for you, right? And Chrome DevTools protocol does not do that. While it's an excellent DevTools protocol, it has a very different use case, right? Stability. So Chrome DevTools protocol is version specific. So each version of the DevTools is associated to the Chrome version and need to be bundled together to work, right? And if you go read their documentation, they also mention that because they're version specific, version by version, there could be breaking changes. So browser release happens say every 2-3 weeks, and imagine having to upgrade your DevTools protocol every time there's a browser update that's gone in, and then that would be so difficult, right? And that's not maintainable. It's just a lot of tasks having multiple browsers upgrading so much. It's just a lot of work. With BiDi, the whole goal is stability, where they want it to be stable for the longest time. Like again, I think Selenium users can vouch for it. The ones who've used Selenium for years, it's pretty much the same or stable over years. And I think that's exactly because it's backed by WebDriver Classic protocol that's stable, and same with WebDriver BiDi. Next is event subscription. So when it comes to event subscription with CDP is tricky. It lets you only subscribe to events that are happening in a particular page or sort of particular tab. If you want to work with events on multiple tabs, you pretty much cannot. With BiDi, it gives you full flexibility. You want to subscribe to all the events happening in all the tabs in Windows, or just one particular tab or a set of tabs in Windows. It's totally up to you and your use case. It gives you full flexibility to go do that. Use case, I think, like I mentioned, while CDP is an excellent DevTools protocol helping developers day in, day out, and all browsers have a DevTools that helps them, the use case for which it was designed was not automation, right? The use case for which BiDi is designed, the whole goal is browser automation. So the thought leadership that's gone into it makes a world of difference in the design that comes out of it, and just makes it very ergonomic, easy to use, performant in nature. And the complexity. So again, Chrome DevTools protocol can be highly complex, and that's totally okay because it's a protocol that's used internally by Chrome, and they're kind enough to have it outside available for public to use. But it can be complex, and that's totally okay because it is so feature rich. And the goal is again not for developers to encrypt it and understand and use it on daily basis, but something like BiDi, which is expected to be used by testers worldwide. It is designed to keep simplicity in mind, to understand, to have minimum commands that to get the maximum out of this protocol. Again, focus solely on automation. So just a little bit of difference that we've spoken about. So I'm going to just do this pre-recorded demo just to show um, just to show the difference between the number of commands it takes to create a CDP session versus how you can do it with BiDi. And it's just how the designs are different from automation and how it just fits, right? So I will just, let me do a full screen of it. So this is a simple test of DevTools that I'm running, right? And we're just seeing what happens, or the number of commands that you need to send when you're trying to create a session. So here I'm just running my test. Let it run for a bit, right? And I'm just debugging through things, and things are open. We look good. We just go to the next step. So session should have been created. And now let's go through the logs. Right? So we're just going through the logs because the number of commands we've sent simply to create a session. And imagine having to do that again on a cloud provider. So that's one. That's two. That's three. That's four. So I think we've sent 4 commands to just establish a session. And imagine doing the same thing with, again, cloud providers, or look at it in the cloud, and how tricky that would get. So now let's see what we're doing with the BiDi. So this is, again, a BiDi test where we're not doing some exclusive command to start a session. It just happens. So here we're just like, hey, let me just go use a BiDi feature and what that would take to create a session in the background. Just adding some breakpoints. Start at the browser. So here you can see we were directly able to jump on to a point where we didn't have to do anything, right? So if you see in the logs, there's literally nothing that you got to do at this point because you get the WebSocket thing and you just connect to it right away. There are no back and forth steps to establish session, and you can just subscribe what you want to do and just run with it. That's all. So literally, you see, it took us like 4 network requests to establish a session with CDP. But with BiDi, you just have to upgrade your existing connection and just connect to the WebSocket capability. Okay, so now that I've spoken about this for a bit, let's discuss why. Oops, sorry, I'm not sure. So let's discuss why this makes this the future of automation, right? And the reason it's because it follows standards. Standards are amazing. Web standards are stable. Web standards happen across all browsers. So you get the cross-browser, browser agnosticism right off the bat, which is a great thing for testing. Backward compatible. Again, since it's designed to be stable for years to come, if there's something is already there in the browser, it will just continue to be version by version. It's not something that will break immediately. In fact, things will get added to it. The whole design is not to have breaking changes and let you use it for the longest time. It's an automation driven design. So the design is again done with sole focus of automating the whole process. When you're doing that, all it means is the whole goal or the persona kept in mind are testers, automation testers, browser testing. And I think that makes it a very beautiful ergonomic design, exposing the correct functionalities, just what's required. It's an extension of WebDriver Classic. So if you've used WebDriver, you should be able to do everything that you do in Selenium today and much more. So it's an extension. It's not something that's drastically changing things. It's something that's actually adding on to it, right? Performance. So see, when it comes to Chrome DevTools protocol, it sits very closely to the browser. Always, they're going to sit together. So there can be a lot of back and forth between that. And that's totally fine because they sit so close to each other. So number of round trips are fine. But when it comes to testing, there could be a good chance that you're running your test in your own grid on a device lab that you devised, or a cloud provider who provides a device lab, again, like BrowStack or even Source Labs. And at that time, performance matters, right? So in CDP to do the same thing, you can have multiple commands and that's fine. But with BiDi, the whole design is you send a command and how can you get maximum out of it for that particular command, right? Without multiple round trips. It's designed with performance in mind. And the last, but definitely not the least, is designed by the WebDriver BiDi working group. These are amazing set of people that belong to the different framework owners, different browser vendors, people from different cloud providers, trying to build a common thought leadership and trying to build this protocol out with a very intelligent and discussion focused goal to make lives easier for testers. And I think this is the child of that, and it's very important to understand how that shapes the thing. Because it all happens with open, you could go to their GitHub, file a request, reason with them, or even potentially contribute, right? And there you can have it, and it'll make your automation journey easier. So I think I've gone on to yap for a good amount of time, and I think it's time to see some real world use cases of why BiDi is awesome. So we'll first start with logs, but let me just tell you a little bit. Say each time you get a user report, if something not working, I think first thing you ask everyone, like, can I go see the logs? So every time something goes wrong, you want to go see the logs. And sometimes the chances are not a lot of users know how to get the logs. Second, even if they do, they don't understand the meaning of it. But what if while you write your tests, you were able to find these errors early on, or you were able to monitor your logs early on to find these errors and rectify them and just reduce the whole cycle, and that's what this helps you do, right? So because it, with this, you're able to get the JavaScript error logs or any logs in the browser that happens right off the bat. So you can monitor them, use them for your testing, and identify what's working, what's not working, and go fix it fast. So it's just a simple example as to how you can do that in Selenium today. So the website we'll be testing is this website that I've written. It's a simple HTML page where you click and it will do an error and you can just see it, what's happening, right? So when you, just starting from scratch for demo purposes, you got to do that. So this is the DevTools window. You see what's happening on the console, just so that you know these errors actually happen, and but how we can get them in code. I think it's a very popular feature that people have used, at least with the CDP part of it. You click on it, you see a console log, right? There you go. You see hello world. And you click on this and you get a JS exception that it's not working. And you click on this and you get something with a stack trace. Again, there has to be foo and bar part of everything, but just an example. And now we can go see how we can do this via code. There's Java code available in the latest versions. Please go give it a try if you'd like to. Which is simply creating a object to store the console log entry, the event that we get. And you just go to driver, you do script and add a console message handler. So you add a handler and then you can decide what you want to do with it. Here we're just storing the object and just asserting if it's the message we expect it to have, right? So we go to the page, click on the button that gives us the console log and just do a simple assertion. We store it in a variable. And yeah, we just check if that entry is hello world. And we just remove the handler. Yep, and the test passes. Right? Again, thanks to the power of BiDi. And let's see how we can do the same for like JavaScript error. I think error messages are more popular. You want to know when the error situation happens in your code and how you want to go do that, or even probably check the error pathways. Again, script, add JavaScript error handler. It's object-oriented language, so you will have a different object to store it. Yep, we navigate to the website. You go click on the button that throws the error. You store it, and then again you assert it. And then just remove the handler. Yep, so the test passes. So at the back of everything, what's happening is via basic commands of BiDi. We're subscribing to these events, we're getting the response from it, and these are just high-level APIs to do that. But again, it's driven by BiDi at the back. Let's come to my another favorite feature is DOM mutations, right? So imagine that an element is supposed to change when you click on it. And how would you typically check that in today's age? You would keep polling to see if the state has changed, right? And that's again not very performant again over the cloud or even in general when doing local testing or having your own device lab, grid, etc. But what if there was a way that the browser could inform you, hey, there's a DOM mutation, something changed, and then you, upon that notification, you go see what it is, do your assertions, do your further steps, and move on. I think that is just a better workflow in general. And that's exactly what you can do. Here you can go see when a DOM mutation happens, right? And see what was, what was the original value, and then what is the updated value, and what attribute is changed in the DOM, right? So which I'm just going to show you a simple example for the same. So there's again, JavaScript test, again, available in Selenium. Please go try it out. This is just a simple website, which is, called Dynamic. And let's quickly look at its DOM first, because that's what you want to see how it mutates, right? So, it's a simple title. Go through the body. We see that there is a reveal button, and right, so that's what it says. And there's a revealed button, but it says display none. Because the attribute is display none, you can't see it, right? And you just cannot see it. It's display none. And then you reveal a new input and you see, okay, the style just went from being to the default style. So display none means it does not show it. The default style is you should be able to see it. So you see the DOM changed. What changed in the DOM? The style attribute changed. When you click on it, the button is now revealed. Right. So and the style is just back to its default value. And let's see this via code. Yep. So now, again, this is all JavaScript code. Again, it's very similar. You go to driver.script, add a DOM mutation handler, store the mutation information that you've gotten into it so you can dig into it later. You can navigate to thing. Again, we're going to reveal. Basically, we're clicking on this button so we can show the DOM mutation. Waiting for the mutation to happen a little bit. You don't have to, but I think this is pretty much for the demo purposes because when that happens, you should instantly get an event from the browser in your handler. And then we're checking what is the attribute name. Current value is the default one, and the old value is display none, so it was not displayed, and current being empty, which is default, so I was able to see it. Let's run the test quickly. Yup, and the test passes. Again, powered by BiDi, this uses a bunch of BiDi commands underneath where we use things like script pinning and things like that. So script pinning. So I think with DOM mutation, what we do is we use script pinning in the background to make this happen and to develop this high-level API for you. But let's see what script pinning is, right? So imagine you want every time a new tab opens, you want to run a certain script to set the stage for your tests, right? And so every time you open a tab to having to send that script again over the network, that would be very tricky. Imagine the back and forth that would happen. But now, what if you could just do that once? What if you could go preload a script on your browser so that every time there's a new tab, you tell the browser, hey, please run this script, set the stage, and then I'm going to run my tests. So the back and forth is reduced. You're not sending a huge script payload over the network, and you're reducing that. And the way I'm using script pinning here is for DOM mutation. So for DOM mutation, I actually write a script. It uses the JavaScript APIs to do that in the background. And before every time the tab opens, that script is run in the sense that script is ready. That anytime a DOM mutation happens, the script knows what to do and pass the information back, right? So that's what we use it for. But you could also use it to set a stage or run some scripts before running your tests. To set some environments, probably set some databases, to just probably even log in users, a lot of manual steps as well to get it to a stage before you want to start testing. Again, this is a JavaScript demo that I'm doing. You do script.pin. Here I'm pinning a simple script that says prints console.log to hello. This is pretty silly because again, it's a test, but it has more real world implications. And then here so we're kind of combining the two, right? Here, what I am doing is I'm pinning the script so that every time a new tab opens, the console should display this. And I'm also using a console handler just to check that my console message is this the console message, the expected message. Yeah, and I'm just gonna we can run it, the test will pass. Because these are all actual tests and examples of Selenium they're running in a CI. So let's just debug this so that we can prove that it actually works. Yep. So I think you can see the console log hello. So here we just open with Firefox just to see their dev tools, right? And if we get that information, so you can see it says hello. Yep. And that's pretty much what we wanted to see in the debugger, and the test passes. So we're able to see how you were able to pin a script and just double check if you did the right thing. But you will have to be very creative to think of different use cases this has. But it's very, very important. I think anyone who's used Selenium and knows of Selenium atoms, right? So imagine pinning all the atoms in the start and the great benefits that can have. Basic authentication. I think this is again a popular feature where again you want to authenticate your apps So you can just set up your authentication handlers and be like, please, every time there's a pop-up, enter this username password and just move on with the test. Don't keep blocking it. And should be more steps where you're sending more requests over the network again to like fill in something, do enter, and it just reduces that churn. So I think this is pretty basic to understand. But again, we just so this is a basic app which has a basic auth. Um, Where's the pop-up? You fill your username, password. If it's clear, it lets you go through it. Like if you're authorized. So empty username, password didn't work. Now I admin invent innovative password. But once you sign in, you can see basic. Oh, congratulations, you have the correct credential. It's just a simple assertion. And again, I think this is pretty easy to do in the sense you could go like driver.network.add authentication handler. And I think in the newer versions, we also have that particular URIs if you want to set up like for this URI, this password, this URI, this password, you can do that too. Here it's like any URI. If it's you ask me for authentication, this is the password. We go to the thing and then we just do some assertion. For assertions, we just do a few more steps to get the message. Yep, and let's just quickly run this test. Yep, and we all could see how we were able to authenticate. Intercept network. I think this is a very, very popular feature that we often get asked about, or there's something that users always rely on to intercept your network requests and responses and potentially mock them. The high-level APIs are currently under review and they'll be available in the future versions of Selenium. Meanwhile, I'm just showing you the power of BiDi using some low-level BiDi APIs, where just to show that this is possible, right? So we are currently building out the high-level APIs in Selenium. They're already under review. But meanwhile, just showing you some low-level APIs where you can still do this, but it's just a little trickier. You need to understand a few things. But so I think let me just go back a little bit. Sorry about that. So sorry. So what I'm doing is initializing a network module, right? And inside the network module, there are different commands and events that I could use. So it could be you're adding an intercept. You're intercepting the request just before it's sent out, right? And also when the response is started from the browser. So you want to intercept at two stages of the network lifecycle. And you're going to see what happens before the request is sent. You could do a bunch of things, and once you get the response, you do a bunch of things. Like what I'm pretty much doing is I think printing things out to see this the request that I sent. Right? So before the request sent, in that handler, I'm like, okay, let's just print the URL for which the request was sent and what's the method. And each request has a unique request ID, which is and then what we do here is we want to, since we intercepted the request, it's blocked at that point of time. And because it's blocked at that point of time, once you go to unblock it, you want to continue the request. But this is your point where you might want to just continue the same request, or you might want to modify a request. And modifying a request is useful when you're planning to mock things out, right? So here what I'm doing, instead of the method get, I'm just modifying the method head, that we won't see the body. But you could easily change the whole request URL to point to a different database, or change the post body that you're sending for different reasons, and that's fine too. And in the response bit, we're just again seeing that, oh, what was the response that we received for, right? So what was the URL for which we received the response, and what was the method for it, the HTTP method. Again, there's a request ID, and then we continue with the same. Let's just quickly run this test. because again, it's a demo. We need to do that. Yay. It passed, but let's see what the results, what we got. So let me just analyze this a little bit. So the request URL that we sent was, yeah, the one that we actually sent um, for was the log entry added URL, which is fine. And the method that we initially wanted to send was get, right? So when we send the request to this URL and for a get, it used the get HTTP method. We modified to use head. That's why when um, before the request is sent is the first two lines. The second two lines are printed essentially when the response was gotten from the browser. So we were able to successfully modify an outgoing request, change its method, and just before receiving a response from the browser is telling me I'm starting the response for this one. And you can see that the get changed from head. And I mean, you can use this definitely to mock out a lot more things. To mock out your database calls, to point to a test database if you need to mark out calls to some other websites that you're doing. For testing, all this is immensely useful. So now that we've seen the power of BiDi, what it can do, some real world examples that you can go play with, and why BiDi is the next big thing, because uh, Puppeteer adopted WebDriver BiDi, and now it's cross-browser automation tool. Playwright is exploring it, right? So it has huge, huge waves across the automation space. So I'm going to walk you a little through Selenium's BiDi journey and what it looks like in general. It starts with the W3C BiDi protocols, anything that gets landed in the W3C BiDi protocol that's been worked by the working group. Any new feature that first comes in, I think we try to keep a tab of it, or at least we're aware of what's happening there. Um, I mean, that's just us being aware, but it's actually first implemented by all the major browsers in their systems. Once that's done, like I said, Selenium keeps an eye on it. We try to implement the same on our end so users or frameworks that develop on top of Selenium can use this, or we can build some high level features out. After that comes the usage part, right? So this is when the users use their features and they can tell us if they love it or they hate it. So that's the feedback cycle where they can tell it if it's useful, do they want more from Selenium, and can we develop some interesting features to them. And oftentimes, it could be possible that the feature that you're asking for doesn't exist. For example, there's a popular asked how to emulate geolocation, which does not exist. It's not something Selenium can do it right away with WebDriver BiDi, because BiDi has not defined it yet. Since it's not defined, it's not in the browsers, and there's no way we can go implement it. So you can also provide your feedback and things like that by sending it or giving that or creating an issue or even contributing to the BiDi protocol. And at each stage, everyone can help out, right? It could be the WebDriver BiDi protocol. You can just do Google WebDriver BiDi and GitHub. You're able to see the GitHub repo. It's done in the open. You can make requests, read their discussions, read their meeting notes, also help them out if you'd like and contribute in that direction. A lot of browsers are also open source. If you'd want to go and help out in that direction, again, give reviews and feedbacks to them. Um, Selenium, again, it's very open. You can come and chat with us on Slack to see how you'd like to contribute or how you can help out. I think even the easiest way you can help out is just by trying out the feature, right? And giving us feedback if something's working, not working, or even helping with the documentation, because it's just so rich. You could also document it. Um, it's a great way to get started in open source with documentation. And if nothing else, you can always come up with ideas and thoughts about implementing something, or even just implement it with us or for us, like for the project. And at the same time, another big option is making a lot of noise on social media about this upcoming protocol, because it's something that's actually, again, very crucial to all the frameworks, and it'll be really good if more people are aware and they understand and benefit from it primarily. So at each stage, what we value is your thoughts, your inputs, your contribution. I think everything's appreciated from the community. There are several ways to join this journey, right? And yeah, I think together we create. And just again a quick brush up. You could debug any issues with BiDi and help us. You can go look at the issue tracker, pick something up, and start off from there. You could come ask us what is missing and how we can help in contributing, and we're more than happy to guide you through it. Anyone can help us add more documentation to this, write blogs for this, explain this further, spread the word on social media. That'll be great too. use it, thoroughly, test it, break it so that we know how can we do a better job, or come up if you have an idea, if you have that light bulb moment where you go like ting, and then how about we have this? Is it possible? It might just be possible. So don't be afraid to ask um, the W3C BiDi community or the Selenium community to see how this can happen. We also have some browser vendors who are very active on the Selenium Slack to help out, so you can also get some doubts clarified from them. I think all I'm trying to say is together we create. It's a community-driven effort, which involves a lot of different people coming together and giving their precious time to make this happen. So thank you once again. These are just some important links if you're looking to get started with this. First one is just the Selenium repository. You can go to the issues and see the ongoing issues with labels like C DevTools, or even like search BiDi, and you might find a bunch of things that we're planning to implement and when they're going to come up. Second is the spec. It's actually the WebDriver BiDi spec. You can go have a read, see the commands, events, see if you can do something cool out of it, or see if you'd like to even probably potentially use Selenium as a base and use some cool, build some cool framework or like a library on top of it that can help the testing community. Second is the web platform tests. This is actually one of my favorite places. I hang out a lot here because what this shows is all the BiDi features and where the browsers are at in implementing this, right? So BiDi is an ongoing effort. Web standards are slow, but they're awesome. They take time because there's just a lot of things involved. But the browsers and Selenium and other frameworks are fully committed to it to make this happen. So this is one place where you can go see what exact command is available in which browser from which versions, right? And just have a look at the progress, but you can see a good chunk of green. So I think we're in good shape now. If you want to help with documentation, or even if you want to try something or try it out for yourself just for fun or for your testing needs, we have a code examples link. You'll see all the examples there. You can help by either running them or using them, whatever is comfortable. And the last link is to our chat room. So you can come drop by, say hello, discuss, talk, and we'll be more than happy to do that. Thank you everyone for stopping by, and hopefully listening to me has helped you gain some knowledge about this new protocol. Again, if you want to talk to me further, I'm there at Selenium Slack. If you have any questions, concerns, I can help you address it there. Bye-bye. Have a lovely rest of your day. And again, a very happy birthday to Selenium.
Thank you, Puja. That was amazing talk. I am just now adding stage Marit and all other folks for the QA panel. Just 1 minute, please. We have Simon. Hey, Simon. Hey,
Hi
Marit.
there.
Hey, Jason.
Hello.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Hi, Diego. And we have Alex. Over to you, guys.
Hello.
All right. Let's start maybe with feelings. How are you feeling now? It's Selenium's birthday. Maybe we'll start from Jason.
Hi. Sorry. Is there a question?
Anything you want to share on Selenium's birthday? Like a short
No,
Christmas?
just then. I can't believe it's been 20 years, and it's amazing. And thank you for all the people who put this event together, and just keep the party going. Really,
Simon.
Yeah, it's astonishing. It's been 20 years of Selenium. I second everything that Jason said about just phenomenal group of people that put all this together. And I include the community in that. Fun little story. I told my boy that I was going to be doing this call today to celebrate the 20th birthday of Selenium, and he goes, "You're old," which I thought was a little bit rude. But next year, I believe Selenium can vote and drink in the US, so that's going to be phenomenal.
Yep. Still a couple of years until it can rent a convertible hot rod car, but so still have that to look forward to. 25. That's going to be the big one. Can rent a Mustang.
I'm not sure what's the age order in the project next, but I'm going to give the voice to Alex next because he joined this group of people first out of the crowd.
David is the first person I met in the Selenium project back when I was not even doing Selenium, and that's how I learned about it. Selenium is the thing that brought me like in the industry and gave me a jump start in my career. So I'm more than happy. It's been 2 decades and it's thriving.
Over to you, David.
For me, I'm just surprised that a project can last 20 years, right? Like you see how many open source projects come and go, and we seem to have just found that special group of people with a special idea on technology and have just made it work, right? Like that for me is the thing that's surprised me. Like I look at it all the time and just go, wow. Like even I've made a career. I know Alex just said, like, you know, he met me and then has built a career, but like even I've managed to build a career out of it, and I think it's amazing.
Diego, how are you feeling?
Yeah, it's an interesting feeling. When I joined the project, I didn't know that it already had like 13, 14 years. So it has been an interesting ride. I'm also seeing that many other big projects are becoming 20. Like Ubuntu is also 20. I saw them celebrating that. So that's interesting to see how these huge projects have been alive for such a long time. And in general, what I have to say about the project is that since day one, I have feel this warm environment of collaboration and teamwork, and it doesn't matter where you are, in which like country or like place in the world, or like what race you are. It doesn't really matter. There is like everyone is welcome. That has been one of the things that has kept me going in the project. So I'm thankful for that.
So we had a couple of questions there in the YouTube chat. They're very specific, so maybe I'll frame them a little bit when I ask them to this audience. So I'll take the later question first. So there was a question on kind of interpreting what Puja was saying. So is BiDi a full replacement of WebDriver? I feel like maybe Alex is one of the people who could pitch into this.
It's not a full replacement, but as far as we were having internal discussions, the WebDriver is something that eventually should be used internally within the Selenium project. So you keep using all the same API like driver, find element, click, but internally it is powered by BiDi. And on top of that, you get all this amazing API for network interception, DOM mutation, and basic authentication, pretty much everything that Puja mentioned. So backwards compatible, and we still have all the great API, but now it's running through BiDi.
I think that's a great answer to the question. Another one was maybe related a little bit on the topic that Diego, you were touching upon. There was this question on, is there a feature to handle unexpected message box? I feel like it's related to the whatever layers you have on top of Selenium. Maybe you want to address that a bit, Diego.
Yeah, I think I don't know if the question is related to that, but in recent versions of Chrome, there was a change where you had to change the capability just set to ignore those messages. So if you come to the Slack channel we have, I want to leave the link there. We can give you specifics, because I think it was Puja who said, okay, this is what changed, and she made different changes in our tests, so we can give you more details about that. I'm just looking for the link, and I'm gonna leave it to you here on our channel. There it is.
So then there's the question of the greenfield projects. Projects are looking to move into Playwright. Is Selenium losing the race? Would anyone like to comment on this in some way?
I've got a comment.
Go ahead.
So one of the benefits of being old is you get to see the pendulum shifts in the industry. It's going back and forth. The other one is realizing that we're all in a chess game, and particularly, we're all pawns, right? And really, it's the tech titans all battling each other out. And I won't name specific companies, but basically, I'll just say that one company is investing in a particular tool, and they're also very heavily aligned with a particularly famous AI chat thing, right? And in the grand chess game that we're all a part of, you will have, I think it's like a Newtonian kind of effect there, where there's an equal, wherever there's a thing, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So you'll have other tech titans who will invest in other things to check the power of the first. Again, this is all like literally European history, and I'm just jumping around. The coffee is finally kicking in. But my point is, Selenium's not going to go away because the entire tech world is not going to just let one big tech company win and win the whole chess game or whatever. So there's a certain level of like, it's important in that level, if we're in a chess game and we're all pawns, to be aligned with some king or queen or bishop or knight on the chessboard, metaphorically. So in that sense, that it would be good for Selenium to look where it is on the board and make sure it knows who its friends are, if that makes any sense. I was really careful about not naming any specific companies there, but that's my take on it. It will not go away because the tech world does not like just one winner in any category.
Go ahead, Simon.
So I was just going to say that automating a web browser, like doing the actual plumbing of that, is an incredibly demanding and expensive task to do. And trying to carry all that effort across multiple browsers on yourself is incredibly hard. We tried it in the early days of Selenium, where we controlled all the implementations for all the browsers, and we could only get so far. And it was only because the process was standardized through the W3C that we were able to get support that we have right now. So I think anyone who is attempting to do browser automation that isn't through the standards track is setting themselves up for colossal technical and economic headwinds. And therefore, at some point, we're going to end up in a situation, I believe anyway, that we'll end up in a situation which Diego is talking about, where people have the sort of underlying technology of the WebDriver BiDi specification, and then they'll be able to pick the flavor of API that suits them best and suits their teams most effectively. So I don't see this as a problem for Selenium. I see it as a broadening of choice.
Am I reading David's nodding so that you might want to comment as well?
No, so Simon and I speak a lot to each other just on this specific topic, and I wholeheartedly agree on the economic headwinds part, right? Like, I've worked on a browser. There's a reason why like Mozilla are pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars through their partnerships to pay to build the browser, right? Like, building a browser is hard. It's an operating system these days, and I think kind of anyone who thinks it's just a simple case of, oh, it's just a bit of JavaScript is a bit naive on kind of thinking how it is. There are different opinions, and I think opinions are great because that's how we get to the stage where we are with kind of like, we've got BiDi now, right? There was an opinion from Opera back in the day that like, maybe we should look at WebSockets, but then it turned out it was quite hard at that point. And Andreas is always going to tell us off if we kind of catch up with it. He was right, we were wrong. But we are able to now see kind of how different things are doing, and we can build it out. And like, it's good to have different opinions because then everyone wins, right? Like, the whole point of creating standards and pulling everyone into the standards bodies is a rising tide lifts all ships, right? And we want to improve the web for literally everyone, right? And that is where the kind of standards bodies come into their own very quickly.
Diego, do you still want to comment on this one? There's lovely sentiment in all of the previous ones, so I was thinking maybe you have something that you want to add as well.
No, I think there is not much to add. I think in general the spirit has been to enable people to do their best work, and I think slowly people are realizing that if you don't work together, then there is no way to move forward. You can have something working for a couple of years, but eventually the only way to move forward is to help each other and work together. And I think basically that's the gist of it, I would say.
There's a question on the headwinds already before anyone here mentioned the headwinds. Any headwinds from browser manufacturers regarding new standards proposed for the Selenium group?
No, the exact opposite, really. Google and Mozilla are driving most of the work on this, right? And we see that with Puppeteer, right? Puppeteer was created by the original Playwright team, and they did everything, and it was a lot of hard work to keep Puppeteer working, and they've gone, actually, you know what, keeping this up to date with every version of the browser is hard work. Let's work and get the standards there. So then we have the Mozilla folks that are like, oh yeah, we'll help you get WebDriver BiDi so you can drive Puppeteer. And now we have WebDriver BiDi going in there. So Selenium, Puppeteer, all of those are kind of driving it, and those parties are doing it. Apple are in every meeting. They're discussing everything. Obviously, there's a famous thing from Apple where they do not discuss future releases, but that, it doesn't mean that they're not doing anything. They're already part of every discussion that's there. So there is clearly something happening. We just can't see into what they're doing. And so we'll get there. Right, it's a little bit slow, but we're definitely having a lot of positive interactions with browser vendors, which is amazing to see. Microsoft are rejoining the W3C working group for browser testing and tools. I had an amazing discussion with one of their engineering managers last week about their implementation and how they're working on it. So there's definitely no headwinds from browser, the teams working on the browsers. They all want to do this because they see the web being a better place when there's more browsers available for people, not just one, because there's difference of opinions in how we work through it.
Can I add something? Hey, I have a feature request. So I get to just sit back and throw cans of tomatoes here, but I noticed. So it's kind of related to what you were saying, David, about the Mozilla and Google heavily investing. Also going back to the question about Playwright. I noticed on the Playwright side, JavaScript and Python are both officially supported bindings. And on the Puppeteer side, I think it's just JavaScript. I'm primarily a Python fan, although JavaScript and Python are my two favorite. I would love to have the Puppeteer, the unofficial Python bindings for Puppeteer be officially supported. If that's, I don't know, whoever is listening to this, or if it's actually someone on this panel, but I would love that to be officially incorporated into it. Anyway, that's just kind of my wish for the universe.
Oh yeah, I'll send it over to kind of the team and go, hey, what about this? Because Google is very much a Python company, right? Python, Java, and JavaScript. So I can't see them saying no, unless they just don't have the people to do it. But there's amazing .NET Puppeteer bindings that are done by the community. So kind of, it doesn't necessarily need to go to them, but as long as it's fully supported long term, that and they help and support, which the Google team are actually amazing for kind of wanting to support the community. And I don't see it being a major issue.
Yeah, I think the specific thing is when I go to I had to make sure I fact check myself to make this was an accurate kind of comment. But I go to Puppeteer, that is the Python bindings. And the gut punch there is that it says, attention, this repo is unmaintained and has been outside of minor changes for a long time. Please consider Playwright Python as an alternative, which is, yeah, unfortunate. So I don't know if we have to kick in a couple bucks or, sponsor a hackathon or something like that. So, but yeah, we should get the, I don't know, have to knock some heads at Google maybe, who knows? Anyway.
There's another one, which is not really a question, but kind of like an opening of the conversation. Anyone want to comment on mobile in this whole space? Like we talk about web automation, but how does mobile sit in this picture?
Well, in terms of BiDi, it already works with Chrome on Android and Firefox on Android. I know that from speaking to the teams. the Appium folks do an amazing job of getting there. And I think it was this time last year, Jonathan Lips wrote BiDi support directly into Appium. We got together in London. So mobile support is getting there. There is the general issue, and Jason can kind of expand on it, but like mobile OS automation is the Wild West of like the web was, say, 20 years ago, right? Like it's still there, but the Appium folks are doing amazing work.
Yeah, I think it's weird. Well, what was it? Like they're brother sister projects. They're related, right? So I think it's really cool that the next conference is a combined Selenium and Appium conference. I think that's in Spain. I'm sure that's mentioned earlier. So if people want to have more collaboration and kind of connection between the two projects, that's a great touch point. I think that should definitely be repeated in the future. Yeah, I've been spending my last 10 years working on mobile, and I guess the thing is that it's not just about web or mobile, but as long as there are humans in the world, and the robots haven't taken all the jobs, we will keep coming up with interesting new buttons that need to get clicked. And it's not always obvious how to automate the clicking of those buttons. You would think that clicking a button would be a solved problem by now. And yet, because the projects, here we are 20 years later, still talking about clicking buttons and mobile buttons and physical buttons and touchscreen buttons and airplane buttons and spaceship buttons and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I think that the project should, there's more in common than differences. Anyway, I'm looking forward to having those kind of discussions at the hopefully in Spain, I guess, at the mobile/web Appium Selenium conference.
There's another question then on support. Well, Alex, maybe you wanted to comment on mobile still.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, like, apart from Selenium Conf and Appium Conf happening next year, there's also a lot of work internally between the projects to make, like, if you're familiar with Appium internal development, a lot of it is based on extended Selenium, and at some point these extension points were very painful. So we've been working a lot with folks from Selenium to make it easier for Appium to work with Selenium, to extend it, to make sure Selenium doesn't accidentally break it. And I think we've already Ruby, Python, and I think .NET and Java are already implemented all that in Selenium. So we're not just collaborating on the conference level and discussions, we're actually doing a lot of work internally to make Appium project strive, and Selenium as well.
So in a way, we have both older and newer leadership here in this call. And I have to ask the question that was asked there. What about AI and Selenium in the future? Let's start with the current leadership. So Diego, maybe you want to frame the AI and Selenium first, and then we'll see what others want to pitch in.
I was asked the same question. I was last week in a conference in Colombia where I saw different uses of AI. And it was interesting when people ask when is going to be AI part of Selenium. And I usually give the same answer because AI needs some primitives to work well to trigger the rest of the tasks. And I think Selenium is one of those primitives. So embedding AI inside Selenium would be a mistake because tools built with AI use primitives, and Selenium is one of those best primitives to actually enable people to do work around whatever their purpose is. So I think we need to keep the work we're doing, like have a lean library that works for most or all use cases, and one of those use cases is AI.
Go ahead, Jason.
I'll add a comment. I think the other thing is in the history of programming languages, you have, again, kind of gray beard, old person warning comments, but Selenium effectively becomes like just pushed down to a lower stack, kind of like you have in the history of computer languages, you had ones and zeros and vacuum tubes, and then you had assembly, and then assembly was annoying, and so people invented C, and the C is annoying, and so people invented higher level languages and things like that. So I could see Selenium just not going away, but getting pushed down to the stack. So as Diego was saying, instead of you writing Selenium code you'll probably be asking an AI to write that code for you, but that Selenium layer is still there. It just becomes more and more hidden over time. Just like assembly is there, and machine code is there, but no one spends their time writing machine code every day. Now it's all in JavaScript and Python and all the other things.
Simon, you had a comment.
Yeah, if you go back to 2007 and the first talk I did about WebDriver at GTAC, the idea was always that you were going to build frameworks and APIs that were effective and meaningful for your team on top of the primitives offered by the browser automation framework. And so if you want AI features, the perfect place to do it is not at the raw level of trying to access the internet and do bits and pieces. It's like, when I've got that data, how do I process it and think about it? So as Jason says, it's a layer on top of Selenium that you'll be building. So I'd expect to see it in frameworks like Selenium BiDi or Selenide or any of the other frameworks that are out there.
Alex had a comment as well.
Yeah, and there are already projects doing that, right? So one that comes to mind is a project called La Bague. I think it's French, but I'm not sure I pronounced it correctly. But essentially, that's an open source tool that gives some instruction, what do you want to do on the web, and that translates it into the Selenium code that would drive the interactions with the elements. So check it out. There are projects. I think they're emerging every day. Some of them are using Selenium, some of them using Chrome directly, but I think it's a very, very new ecosystem that we'll see flourish over time.
I do have a proposal for a hello world for an AI Selenium test, and I would like to see this in conference talks as like a baseline benchmark. Just bring up a calculator app on whatever platform and do 1 + 1 = 2, and that, like, tell the AI to add 1 + 1 = 2 and verify that the answer is correct. And I do that on all the testing tools, and I'm never impressed with the results. But it doesn't mean I'm an AI skeptic for all time. I'm just saying that is the minimal hello world benchmark for if telling an AI to go to a calculator app and do 1 + 1 = 2, if that is faster than writing the code to do it manually, whatever, like through the Selenium API or whatever, then it's great, it's game on. But until then, anyway, so just like whenever you're trying out some new tool, literally bring up a calculator app, tell the thing to do 1 + 1 = 2, make sure this it's correct and fast. Those are the two benchmarks. That's the thing I would love to see, because I'm going to otherwise tune out all the other data. If it can't automate a calculator, then whatever.
Do these tests fail because LLMs are really bad at basic mathematics, or do they fail for some other reason?
That's why it's a trick question for many different reasons. So it's like, that's just like, keep it simple. Everyone loves to use big words and fancy white papers and press releases, and like none of these tools can just do quickly 1 + 1 = 2.
So we're about to close. So it's a round of closing things. What do you want people to remember from the 20 years of Selenium, in the past or in the future? Any words of wisdom that you want to part with? David, maybe you want to start.
For me, the last 20 years and hopefully the next 20 years is always going to be around community and how we build it out and look after each other and build each other up. My favorite story was someone came into IRC once and said, I've got an interview in 2 hours. Can you guys teach me how to do it? And we did it. I remember Simon, Jim, and me, and a few others were just like, you do this, do this, do that. And that person went on to get the job. I remember it very clearly. It was like 10 years ago. And it's always been around community. So community is the big thing for me.
Diego.
Yeah, I would say I think Selenium has lived 20 years and will live 20 or plus more, thanks to different companies who are supporting the project, donating and putting people to work on it, but also more importantly to the community, who are a wide range of users. So my message would be, pass along the voice, pass along your success stories that you have had with Selenium or builds or tools built on top. And just like make the project even more known and more famous, and help us grow the community even more.
Alex.
I think I'll just reiterate and say that community is the best. That's how I got into, I mentioned that's how I got into my career. And over years, I think I've been in Selenium for about 9 years. And there were ups and downs in my personal and professional life, when there were like months when I couldn't dedicate any time to Selenium. No one ever questioned that. Everyone were supportive. Whenever I had something going on at my, let's say, job, there were always people who would support me with just a hug, virtual hug, or something even more concrete. So thank you for that. And I think that's really the best thing about Selenium.
I'm not sure if I should pass this to Simon or Jason next, but let's take Simon. And
yeah, I mean, it is all about the community. Like, as Alex says, I've made really great friends through this project. And that's been amazing. And I've seen people in the community come together and pull for each other, like David said. And then just seeing how, as an industry, we've come together and standardized on this is how we can automate a browser. That's phenomenal. So I think like Diego's talk earlier had the quote, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go long, go together. And I think that is true. And Selenium as a community goes together, builds together, I believe, is the slogan from the last conference.
Jason, you get the final word.
Sure. To plus one or five, all the other comments about community, but more specifically, this is imploring anyone who's listening. I guess the current video boxes are excluded because you're already drinking the Kool-Aid here. But anyone who's listening is absolutely encouraged to get more involved in the project, however you can or want to. There's I think it's tradition now at the conferences. Again, you don't have to physically be there in person, but there's a thing called fix a bug, become a committer. And you don't have to go to the conference to do that, but definitely, like, if you were listening to this, I'm telling you, I'm looking you in the eyes, you can be a committer on this project. You should become a committer on this project, right? So if there's, and it doesn't have to be a forever, you're not committing for the next 20 years of your life, but the project started with a bunch of little janky bits of JavaScript code, right? Like, it's kind of, I don't know, one of those things, if I can do it, you can do it. But like there are many places for people to plug into this. You could help with the documentation or the website, or organizing events, or actually writing code, or dealing with the W3C and all of those meetings and like all of this stuff, right? Around the project. There are many ways to get involved. And so I absolutely implore, if you were literally listening to this either live or on a YouTube thing, you are more than qualified to join the project, and you should. And the project needs you. I think that's the biggest thing, is that if the project, it's not, I joke about this thing called the Lindy effect. There's this thing of the longer something has been around, that means the longer it will stay around. But it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not just a thing that's true. You have to make it true, which means we need a community of people to take it the next couple of years. So I implore you, please, join the project, help out however you can. And I don't think the web is going to go away anytime soon. So anyway, thanks for everyone for being a part of this and organizing this event and listening to it and using Selenium and all that stuff.
And the final thank you goes to Pallavi for holding the space in the background for all of us and organizing all of this. You didn't see her face too much in the call, but great work, Pallavi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. That's amazing. That's great. 2 decades of Selenium and a lot more to go. And the entire vision of this entire event goes to Marit. She's also a member of the project leadership committee of Selenium. So thank you so much, Marit. Thank you, Diego, for helping this through. Thank you, David, Jason, Simon. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, the amazing community of Selenium, for joining us today. Thanks a lot. We'll see you on the other side. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Next 20 years.